So good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Many thanks for joining us on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. I was about to say Monday then. Already get my days mixed up this week. Just waiting for one or two people to join. Apologies for the minute late start. As usual, technical and IT are sent to try us, and just trying to share a PowerPoint should be fairly easy. You'd think, wouldn't you? So yes, there's always one thing. So hopefully that's the one thing this afternoon. It's out the way. We're sorted and we're good to go now. So I shall just wait one more minute and then we will head into the introductions. Okay. The entrance from the lobby seems to have died down a bit. Okay, marvellous. I'm going to get cracking. So let's go through the introductions. I'm going to start with me, seeing as I'm the one talking currently. I'm Sam Kiln. I am our Click Academy Manager for Flourish, and I lead up our leadership training for that we deliver under license with Skills for Care and other stuff as well. So that's me, and I have quite a history in adult social care and also in the NHS previously. So next I'm going to introduce the delightful and the delectable Louis Ware.
I've never been called delectable before. I don't know what that means, but I'll take it. Morning, afternoon, everyone. I've not only forgotten what day it is, I've forgotten what time of day it is. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Louis. I'm the CEO of a group called Care Research, also known sometimes as Care Surveys. We do lots of work supporting services with amazing feedback, and we also do a lot of work helping people understand CQC, which, as you can imagine, is a little bit like being chained to a roller coaster. You kind of don't quite know where they're going to go next.
Thank you, Louis. And next, we have the delightful Cam Gill.
Thank you, Sam. I'm Cam Gill. I'm the Managing Director for Woolfinch, Oxfordshire. Woolfinch is part of a franchise, and we support people with various home care services, and we also do Thrive Clubs in the community. I'm not from a care background. I fell into care accidentally, but I can't see myself doing anything differently now. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. And last but no means least is John Healy.
Hello, I'm John. I've been a care worker for 20 years, and I currently I'm on the advisory board for the Care Worker charity, and I've worked in various sectors: the charity sector, the NHS, and the private care sector.
Thank you, John. So again, thank you to everybody that's joined us this afternoon for this hour's webinar. And today we are talking about leadership and culture in care, and more specifically about what makes people join and then stay. So here's a question for everybody attending this afternoon. I want to pose a question out there, and hopefully we'll go some way to answer that for you this afternoon in the time that we have. But what I want to ask everybody, and pop in the chat, please. You can type in the chat. I want you to give any examples of what you understand organisational culture to be. And what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and multitask if I can. And I want you to type in the chat what you think organisational culture to be, what you understand it to be. And then in a couple of slides time, we'll go back and revisit it, and we'll have a chat about it. So get typing, and I will keep an eye on the chat. Firstly, what we're going to have a look at is we are going to have a look at good leadership. And you may think, okay, we're talking about culture, so why are we talking about good leadership? But actually, good leadership and culture works hand in hand. So from the perspective of our panel members, if I can throw out there to the three of you how you think your behaviours and your values builds that good leadership.
I'm
Who
happy to
crack on?
I'll jump in. I think for me, good leadership in social care is about three things. It's about modeling the expectations and behaviours that you would expect others to have. I think a really big one is around treating people like people and kind of do unto others as you have them do to you. I think it's very easy to get so task orientated that you start to see other people's problems as an inconvenience. Awful examples I've heard of where someone's husband is in surgery, something's not quite gone right, and the manager responded with, "You're still able to make the shift on Wednesday though, right?" And it's like, this is not a human way to speak to other people in their moment of need. So I think treating others as you'd have them treat you. And I think the third thing, for me at least, in terms of leadership in care, is around recognizing the place that work has in that person's life. So what I mean by that is working for me more important than going to my son's recital? Or is going to my grandmother's funeral more important than my work? We have to try and find a way that we can put people first, that we can ensure that, yes, there's expectations, yes, there's work to be done, yes, we've all got a job to do, but it goes back to that humanness, making sure that people's work life is appropriate in terms of its priorities. And that comes from us, because if we don't give people space to take leave, space to take rest, space to recover from things, then we can't be surprised when they burn out and leave. That's just my little tuppence worth.
Yeah, I totally agree with Louis. I think, me as a provider, I need to ensure that I'm giving my managers, what they need in order for them to lead. So, for us, it's consistency, trust, and presence. So if we said something today, it needs to still stand again tomorrow. And, things do go wrong and we need to be honest about it, not get defensive about it. Trust goes a long way. So like Louis said, if a carer has told us that, oh, my mum's unwell, or it's my son's special birthday, I need this time off and whatever, follow up, make sure in care or just in general. I think it's not all about the big gestures. It's the little things that we do. And I think they really, really count. And things don't always go, in the way that we want to, but I think it's showing me showing my managers I'm present, giving them the space in order for them to be able to lead well, and show their team. If they're overwhelmed and unsupported, they're not going to be able to do their job properly, and I'm not doing my job properly.
I'd agree with everything that's been said. I'd say from the care worker's point of view, I think value and self-esteem and acknowledgement and feedback are some of the things that perhaps don't exist in some workplaces. I think the value is that's placed not just on a financial point, but from the value and the added value that workers bring, and when they feel valued, they go above and beyond. And the way which added value comes in is they can see things before they happen and minimise things that could potentially go wrong. I think confidence is another thing, because the care work is the face of any organisation, is the link between the organisation, corporate side of things, the family and the personal people you're caring for. So I think it's sort of like looking at enriching the workforce is actually giving them acknowledgement, telling them when they've done something good, but obviously holding to account when they've done something wrong. And I think it's to have a relationship that actually is a two-way relationship between the employment side, the caring side, and the family or the individual being cared for side. So I think it's actually something that is taken for granted, that sometimes is ignored and isn't always valued.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also, from my own perspective, I think that certainly trust, creating that relationship and having that trust and setting the standards, so you're not just talking the talk, you're actually walking the walk as well.
I think you're correct with that. I think confidence as well, confidence in the person that's managing you. I've worked with various managers that I would go through the gates of hell for, because they've just sort of like really enabled a place to flourish and succeed. And I think that's the sort of thing that you can't really quantify. I think if you feel that someone is looking out and encouraging you and helping you, then you return that. And I think some companies really do succeed at that. And I think that sets the best companies apart from just the good companies.
Yeah, people go that extra mile, don't they? When they feel valued and everything, they see you doing the same, they'll go that extra. And when you're stuck, they're going to go above and beyond for you. So I think it works both ways.
I think it's whether you're seen as a resource or a person. Because if you're seen as a resource, then you sit and think, well, you know what? I'll do my job and I'll do no more. Because if that's all I am, if I'm just a cog in your machine, then I will just be a cog. But if I'm seen as I should be, as a person, and I'm treated as a person, I'm respected as a person, and people are messy and people's lives are messy, and you roll with the punches with that, then I also will act towards you like a person rather than just someone that is an employer. And so I will go the extra mile. I will go through the gates of hell, as you perfectly put just there. But I think that experience, we've all worked for people where we know they don't really care about us. We're just there to fulfill their thing. And it's very easy to go, well, there's this classic, I think it was a meme or something, where someone said, it was someone that worked at McDonald's and said, minimum wage, minimum effort. It was as simple as that. It's like, well, you're going to pay me, you're only going to pay me this. You're not going to get it in America. You're not going to give me healthcare. You give me minimum wage, I'll give you minimum effort. And aside from the wage thing, I think if we treat people like they're just there to do a job, like a finite resource, I'll just get someone else in, then people will start to behave like that. Whereas if they're seen as people and part of a team, they will start to go that extra mile as they do for them.
Yes, I think you're right with that. And I've a quote I really like, I always use, is be kind to everyone because everyone's fighting a battle. I think it's quite a famous philosopher's sort of saying. And I think you never know what people are going through, but if they're turning up, then enabling them to do the job and do a good job, I think is really important. It's a management culture and a culture of an organisation. And I think that's where you go above and beyond, both, as a worker and as someone who's sort of managing people.
And remembering the little things as well. It's funny how the team that I manage, they actually respond very well. If one of their children was off school last week because they weren't very well and they had to take them to the doctor, and it's like, yes, go take them to the doctor, just let me know when you're back, and you support. It's amazing how by remembering that, it's like, oh cracky, you remembered, you care.
And the tone with which you say it as well, like, yes, okay, go on then, whatever, just let me know when you're back. That is very different from, of course, look, let me know when you're back, and if you need to take more time off this afternoon, just we'll work it out later.
You're right with that, and I think trust and honesty comes along with that. So if someone has got a genuine situation, if they're honest about it, you can support them and help them. If they don't have the trust or confidence to tell you that something's happening or going wrong, then I think that's where things can sort of fall by the wayside. So I think you do have a very good point there.
And then they remember that, right? When you've done something and you've trusted them and you've supported them, they're going to remember that, and they're going to go above and beyond, and they're going to if we're looking after our clients, their carers, they're going to go above and beyond for their clients, and that helps us all, right? So I think it's what we show them each and every day.
I think it's also another aspect is the positivity that can breed a very positive culture, and I think depending on how things operate, I think if a blame culture exists, then I think that can be very restrictive and doesn't give a very good quality service. I think you think about CQC branding places as being outstanding and good. I think it's that level of detail, which I think is something that shines through.
Good point. Good point. So I just want to throw something else out here to those that are attending this afternoon. When you think about good leadership, think about a manager. Okay, so think about the best manager that you've ever worked with. So this is not for our panel, this is for the attendees this afternoon. Think about the best manager you've ever worked with or worked for. What did they do that made you want to work your best? And did it include anything that we've just discussed as a panel? So it's not one, you don't have to respond to that, but I'm just saying, putting that one out there, think about the best manager. And I've got a couple that I always think about when I ask this question, but I don't think they're here. But yes, there's a couple of managers that I've worked with, certainly. Anything any of our panel experts would like to add in before I move on?
I would like to add, just because someone's qualified, it doesn't mean they're competent. And I think it's the individual that can bring, that sort of element of brilliant management. Qualifications obviously are important, but I think competence is something which you get through experience and a skill perhaps you evolve and develop, and perhaps isn't measured in a formal way. But I think you can see by the results and the culture of a place if someone is in that banding.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Thank you, John. Okay. So now we come on to more specifically culture, and this is where I very swiftly and seamlessly open the chat.
What could possibly go wrong?
Don't. So this question that I asked at the start, if anyone can give any examples of what you understand organisational culture to be. So just looking at the chat here, we've got answers such as values, relationships, the way people interact with each other and treat each other, and how you do business. Shared values, beliefs, attitudes and ways of working. I like that. That's very good. Values and behaviours. Now we're coming on to a theme here. There's a definite theme. Looking after staff, psychological safety, ensuring they feel listened to and valued. The way we do things around here. Oh, I've heard that a few times in my history. Leadership, yes. Teamwork. What's the old saying? Or am I showing my age? There's no I in team. Respect, I don't know who said it. Respect. Open, supportive values, ethos, good positive leadership, empowering others. I love the word empowerment. Demonstrate organisational values at every level and in everything you do. Wow, that's a good answer. Respecting all different people's values, beliefs, religions. We're talking about equity, equality here. Some excellent answers here. Thank you so much to everyone who's posted in the chat. Somebody's posted, if you have to ask what your organisation's culture is, you haven't got a good one. Oh, now that's a discussion opener right there. How you demonstrate your values in your everyday work and ways of working. Okay, so now I'm coming back to my esteemed colleagues on the panel. So what do you think helps people feel valued, supported and heard? Okay, I'm going to ask you a specific question now. If a new starter joined your service tomorrow, what would you tell them in their first week that shows that this is a great place of work? What would you do? What would you say?
Well, culture, you wouldn't have a poster on the wall and say this is what culture is, right? So I think it would be what the person experienced. So I think in the first 2 weeks, they're going to either make their decision, know whether this was the right decision or not. I think the early experience is everything. So I think if someone arrives and they feel like just another body filling a rota, they're going to be out the door very quickly. But if they feel welcomed and introduced properly, paired with someone who shows them around and makes them feel, explains what, how things work in every setting is different. I think, and then also the manager, being available, spending time with them in the first few weeks, it's not just questions about, oh, have you read the policy, but how are you finding things? Is there anything you're unsure about? Is there anything you need? Or, those sort of things. I think, people don't stay just for the pay. I think it's because they want to feel like they belong somewhere, and they stay for their colleagues, and they like what they feel, and they feel they belong somewhere. So I think it's about getting it in right at the beginning, and then ensuring if your other staff are not feeling valued and don't feel like the right culture, that's going to rub off on the new employees. So I think it's making sure you've got it all embedded in from the ground up.
Absolutely.
I'd say individuality, mentorship. Never let anyone feel that they're on their own. There's never a daft question, an open door policy, and actually valuing the person for who they are, because everybody's good at something, or they can see something differently with a new set of eyes. So I think it's sort of valuing the individual, but also delivering on the promises that are made. Not when you start a job, you'll do this, you'll do that, but the reality is it doesn't happen and you find your own way. I think it's sort of self-empowering to have a very positive, strong culture whereby you are part of a team, you're not left on your own.
I think there's kind of, sorry, I agree with all of what's been said so far. I think there are 3 relational groups that will impact how you experience your role if you're working in care. The first is how you relate to the people you're supporting. The second is how you relate to your team. And the third is how you relate to your leader. Now, most people survive off in care, and please feel free to correct me, a lot of people, I think, survive off of the relationship they have with the people they support, and they take a hit in the team and the leader because of the care, support, dare I say, love they have for the people that they support. If we're going to have a really strong culture, then we should have strong, positive experiences, relationships with all three of those. I mean, you're best mates with everyone, you know, or anything like that, but you should feel not just that you're having a positive experience when you're interacting with those that you care and support with, but actually the team, you feel like you're part of something, you feel understood. You're not going to be best friends with everyone, but you're connected, you've got a shared vision, there's respect, there's trust, and maybe there's a few people you're particularly close to. Again, the leader, whether that is a service manager, senior leadership team, whatever your structure is, at least having a positive reciprocal connection. You're not going to be best mates. There is going to be some kind of hierarchy, but at least feeling like that person knows me and is connected. I mean, you mentioned about bosses. One of the best bosses I had when I was a teacher wasn't even a teacher. I was a teaching assistant, I'm not even a teacher. Was a head teacher called Graham Chisnell, who was actually the youngest head teacher in the country at one point. Anyway, fascinating guy. And the thing about Graham is he knew who I was. I was the new TA. I'd been in the school a couple of weeks, but he knew who I was. He knew what I liked. He knew who I was supporting one-to-one with. He knew that that child could be a bit of a challenge, and he checked in on me. And fundamentally, I felt like we weren't best mates or anything like that, but I felt like he was glad I was there. And I felt like he had some vague interest in who I was as a human being. And that was enough for me to work with him for several years. So I think it's those three areas. We can have positive relationships with people support, staff and leaders, and cultivate those relationships. That creates quite a secure culture for someone when all three of those boxes are ticked, as it were.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of being a team member, connected and included in sort of like a wider purpose. You know, we're all in this together. This is why we're doing what we do. We're very proud of what we do, and we all have a part in that success, and we all celebrate any successes. And I love being empowered to be like that. Talking about previous bosses, I had a boss in the NHS. His name was Ken Stafford, and he knew that I loved teaching, that I loved training, but I wasn't qualified. So he put me forward for my teaching qualifications, which I did very successfully. Thank you very much, Ken. But then as soon as I finished, he put me forward for a secondment to lead a bunch of trainers on a project, on an admin project within the NHS. And it was his belief in me and him empowering me that I actually did it. So yeah, and I'm here today as a trainer. So if it wasn't for Ken, it's all his fault.
I think, sorry to interrupt. I think a strong culture shows itself when there's an issue or something goes wrong or someone needs support. And it's not just what happens every day, it's the extra step where you're backed up, you're supported, you're helped. I think that's a sign of a very strong culture. That leads to high morale, that leads to good retention. And I think, you know, these sort of individuals that have belief in the people that they're working with or have people working within their organisation, I think they're the very strong factors to having a positive, strong work environment that you do want to work in, that you look forward to going to work, and it's not just something you have to go to earn money. It sort of like adds an added dimension to things.
Yeah. I do think our job our sector is a scary one, in that we really can't deal with people that are just doing it as a job. And I think there are some jobs that are jobs. Like I've working in a little shop, I remember doing all kinds of stuff, and it was just a job. And actually, no harm can be done if you take your Tesco job as just a job. I'm not disregarding Tesco. If you are going to someone's home providing care and it's just a job, things can start to get pretty difficult pretty quickly. And actually, I think there is something protective about culture. One of the things we want to do with our culture is maintain it. And that means we do have to call out poorer practice. We do have to correctly and legally and all as it should be, put people on paths that may mean it's not for them. And I think that's something that we need to be very aware of, that because of the human nature of our work, that culture has an extra level of importance in a way that, you know, working in certain other sectors, it wouldn't have the same risk factor. So I think protecting culture is a core part of this as well.
I think you also touch on something there when so when you have to say something and something does go wrong. If you have strong self-belief and feel that you will be supported, then I think it makes the work culture a lot safer and a lot more positive, and actually enables you to say, well, actually something's happened or I don't agree with it, but I know it's going to be addressed and hopefully resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Communication and two-way communication, that listening and communication, so people actually feel heard. And looking back through the chat, it's that the word values comes up so often, and I think as an industry, as a sector, we are very good and very positive with our values and shared behaviours and why we're all here, and we do what we do.
The other thing about values is values cost. Like it's hard to maintain values. There will be cheap, quote unquote, easy ways out when you choose to not stick to your values in a moment. I think one of the things about values, it's great to have them and believe them and say them, but one of the things that we have to really maintain is doing those values in the times where it hurts us, the royal us, whether that's us as leaders, whether that's us in terms of the work that we do or we serve or our team. Having values is hard work. Do you know how easy life would be in some senses if you had no values and just did whatever was best for you all the time? I mean, in many ways, doesn't that sound like an absolute dream? But it's not, and it's not right. And so I think the thing about values is it's a real conscious, continuous effort to do the right thing. And I think it's something that doesn't come naturally. We have to maintain our values throughout the weird things that happen through the day, through the weeks, through the months.
I think you hit on something as well with if you're in a culture where like it's a no blame culture, you can hold your hands up and say, yes, I made a mistake, I need to rectify it. As opposed to I didn't think I should say anything or I didn't want to admit to it. I think that sort of leads to sort of a big responsibility, but it's shared by everyone. And if you have the confidence to think, well, actually, I made an error or whatever, I'm accountable, but I'm saying it's happened. I think that comes with being a very positive and an encouraging way to make sure a service is safe.
Yeah, and they see their managers and their leaders, everyone's human and things happen. If they see them own up to things, it sort of then fizzles down to everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you saying about mistakes. Again, with my trainer hat on now, mistakes are a great opportunity to learn and grow and change for the positive. I mean, we talk about CQC and we talk about the ratings, the difference between a good and outstanding. And Louis, I'm looking at you here. But it is a wonderful opportunity to change and grow and do it together and get those ideas in. And okay, this hasn't worked so well. Everybody makes mistakes, but how can we go forward in a positive way rather than
absolutely.
That's your fault?
It leads to good practice, which sort of like then can be sort of adopted by the people you work with. If you identify something, you think, well, actually, this is a big glaring issue. What are we going to do about it? And then it can introduce a good practice model. So actually things do improve. So I think, again, that comes back to culture and morale.
Yeah.
Having those sort of lessons learned in place and then bringing them up in your staff meetings and stuff, so everybody can see, right, this is what's happened, this is what we've done next time, this is what would happen and how we can avoid things. So I think it's just being open and then learning from things that don't go right.
Yeah.
So you can see much more interested in growth than perfection. Now, there are some things that we can't drop the ball on fundamentally, but there are things where life happens. It's that growth pattern that we need to be continuously demonstrating.
Thank you, everyone. So moving on, our next question is, what does supportive leadership actually look like in practice? So what practical behaviours can we as leaders adopt to support a positive culture and improve retention? So who wants to start this one off?
I don't mind. I think it's the positive culture will go to the aspect of your management or your management style is something that you can relate to, something you can be honest with, and something you can actually say, I've got this idea. where will it go? What can we do with it? And something actually happens. And I think it's also, if you see something positive you can say, but also if you see something not so good that you can say. So I think it sort of comes down to how approachable and how dynamic the management structure is. And ultimately, was it be something that you would want to be doing later on in your career if you're, new to this sector? So I think it's something that's very dynamic, something that's very responsive and very agile. I would say that working in the world of care is never boring, and no day is ever the same.
100%.
So true. Cam?
Yeah, I think for us, we if you look at, we have protected time, so supervisions and stuff, we sort of make sure that there's non-negotiable time, that's booked in, regardless of whether we're stretched with rotas and stuff, that's going to happen. So I think those sort of things are really important to us. And we also have like monthly coffee mornings where we've got a dedicated person who is going to be out, and carers can block a time and go and meet and have an open conversation, not in an office space, but a base time, and talk about anything, whether it's personal or whatever it might be, whether they need some support with financially or anything, they're open to have a conversation. So we have certain things that they're just blocked out, and that is there to support our teams. And then also looking at like feedback. So if there's things that have not gone right, and we give feedback, they give us feedback. I think if there's something that they've told us, we tell them that, right, this is what's happening, but this can't happen right now, and this is why. I think if we're giving them explanations and explaining the reasoning, I think that really helps. And also when things go wrong, they see how we respond to them, and I think then they're more open to come back to us about things that might not be happening, or they want to bring up. I think, but if we weren't doing things, then they're not going to bring anything up again.
I think for me, it's a couple of things. I think without being intrusive, it's being able to understand people in their non-work life as appropriately as possible. What I mean by that is we've got to recognize that we are at best third, fourth, or fifth in their list of priorities. We feel like we're first, and we're paying them, so we think we deserve to be first, but actually in reality there are so many things that matter more to them than their work. And if we support people effectively, we are able to take our place effectively, and we're able to manage the fact that the people we support have lives. Why are all these, the Elon Musks, the Meta fake people, why are they all so interested in AI and robots? Because they don't have to treat them like people. And it's amazing what you can do when you don't treat people like people. Just look over history, the awful stuff that was quote unquote achieved when people weren't treated like people. And actually, if we want to build services that last, that are meaningful, that have great cultures, we need to treat people like people. And part of that means we've got to recognize our place in their life, and we've got to kind of work around that. One practical piece, and it's easier said than done because the headache everyone has, is around recruitment and our numbers. And a really interesting thing someone once said to me is, you either hire too early or too late. You never hire right on time. And then this person followed up by saying, always hire too early. Always have a little bit of wiggle room rather than not enough. Because I often think of it from an employment perspective, a little bit like savings. I don't know what everyone's personal situation is financially, but I've had many a day where I've had about 30 pence left in my pocket. And when something goes wrong and I've got 30 pence in my bank account, I do not handle the situation brilliantly. If I have £1,000, £5,000, £10,000, some amount of savings there, suddenly when it all hits the fan, it hasn't ruined my life. And it's the same when it comes to recruitment. If we are operating on such razor thin people numbers that one person's kid getting a cold throws out a rota for 4 days, that's an us problem. That is a planning, preparation, recruitment issue that you are turning into a them problem for being a human that has a kid that has a cold. So I think structuring our businesses so that we have, where at all possible, and I know recruitment is a massive challenge at the moment, but where we have the breathing room to treat people as people, it will make it far easier for us to maintain. Remember I said earlier about values cost. It's far easier to pay the quote unquote price of our values when we've built our businesses and our services and our homes in such a way that we have the space to weather reality. Does that make sense at all?
Yes,
It
it does.
does.
I think you've touched on something that's made me think when we talk about culture of a company or an institution, it's the way in which they advertise themselves and the way in which they then treat people that apply for jobs. I know several people that have applied for various jobs through a well-known online web service, and they send off all the information and they never hear another thing. They don't even get an acknowledgement. And then some companies are really hot on it and they get back to you, they offer you an interview, or they don't, or they thank you. So I think it's easier to see things from the outside as to how an institution or a company can function by the way in which it treats people that are coming in literally from the outside. And I think sometimes the impression they give that perhaps they aren't that great a company to work for if they can't even treat someone that would express an interest and spend some time applying. So I think that's something that's just made me think.
There was I remember hearing Neil talk about this and saying with younger people, they expect a response in like an hour, preferably earlier. Whereas, I remember you'd apply for a job. I'm not even that old, but I still remember applying for a job and waiting several days, maybe into the next week, to get maybe an email or a call back. Individuals now, if they don't hear back from you that day, they're on to the next thing. And I think, there's a real piece to be said around if you respond to people effectively and positively and in a real way during that whole process, you will communicate something about your culture as a service.
Yes, yeah, it's 100%. I think it's getting on it within, ASAP. As soon as we have a recruiter who generally does a lot of work in the evenings, and that's where most people will apply, and she responds ASAP, because the quicker you respond, because they're going to be applying to several other places. So I think the quicker you respond, and a lot of the younger generation, we see they want an initial call, then they want to meet online, and then they'll come and see you because they want to know whether we're going to be the right fit for them as well. So I think it's adapting to each different individual how they may want that journey to be. So yeah, I think it's getting on it quickly. And like you said, Louis, with regards to recruitment, I've been in this field for over 10 years. There's never the right balance. You've never got the right number of carers and never the right number of clients. So we're recruiting all the time, and I don't think we've ever had the right number of carers and the right number of clients. We've either got too many clients and not enough carers, or the other way around.
Yeah, it is the ongoing challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Not been figured out yet.
There's a whole nother conversation out of this one about resilience, I think, but we'll park that one for another day before we get carried away. Okay, so we've talked about culture, we've talked about recruitment and impressions, and how people, how we should respond to people. First impressions count, definitely. So moving on to training and leadership. So training is a subject that I absolutely love. I'm horribly biased. I'm totally, I'm going to admit that straight off the bat. And building on what we've just been talking to, how training and leadership development can support real change. So how we help to build our workplaces where people not only want to join, coming back to what you've just been saying, Louis, but also want to stay and grow.
So I just talk about this coming generation, and I realised when I was at an event a few weeks ago, I was talking to people in their early 20s, and for some reason I thought that they saw me as a peer, and then they started asking me what it's like to be married, what it's like to be a dad, and I realised, oh God, you see me as old. Oh no, it's happened. And realising, oh no, I'm not a young person at all anymore. One of the things that I have known from the young people that I do get the thrilling opportunity to work with and speak with is they are very future focused. They are very aware that they only have one life. They are very aware that they need their grandparents to give them some money for them to get on a house. And so fundamentally, they need to see a full career pathway if we're going to make care look exciting. It's not that being a frontline carer is not exciting or is not valuable. It of course is, but there will be many sections of younger people that are not even going to look at care because they don't know about the care force pathways. They don't understand the route into, say, becoming a manager or a middle manager. They don't, to be blank, know what the salaries are for someone that runs a home or sets up a franchise or works into middle management. I'm not saying that everyone that starts in care should have the aim to go into management or leadership, but I think training and leadership development and making that a core part of your offering, we are going to welcome you in. You are going to be one of the best carers around, and we are going to support you to look at other opportunities within this sector so that you have a work sector for life. That is something I think is going to become incredibly important when we're dealing with the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds of today. People don't really want to fall into a job and then they fall into a leadership opportunity. Now, a lot of us kind of fell into the things that we got into, and then we met someone, and then someone else recommended us, and we kind of flopped along to where we got. The current younger people do not want to flop around for anything. They need to know exactly how to get there. And I think having strong training, strong leadership development, and a culture that promotes and is very open about that from day one is going to attract a different mindset of person that know that there is a path to go through here.
100%. I think we've been doing
Yeah.
a lot of work with schools and colleges, and I think that's one of the things they look at. Right, okay, so if I started here, how can I get to here? And I think it's showing, well, we have this is the pathway we've got. We can help you get onto this qualification. You would work and pair with a manager, you know, have the difficult conversation, not just, you know, the online stuff, but you actually, you know, go in and have the difficult conversation, see what, you know, what each stage is. You've also got to be able to feel like you can do this role and stuff. So I think, you know, working along some and having the true life experience really opens their eyes. And in social care, there is so many different avenues, you know, like, you know, if I just think about us as a franchise, you know, you've got from the frontline care worker, you've got a supervisor, you've got team leaders, you've got you know, coordinators, manager, you've got, you know, marketing side, you've got, you know, an admin side, you've got, you know, we've got a photographer, you know, so there's so many, and you can go into compliance, head office, there's so many different avenues, so there's so many options. I think it's just making it available and show them, you know, what the different pathways are.
I would like to say I've worked with some incredible young people that have come in with such energy, skills, have seen things, developed things that, you know, older generations perhaps don't, with technology or just the way in which you can interact with the world we live in. I would say the world of care, in my opinion, is one that is underrepresented as a career. I think one of the issues is transferability of skills and the way in which the workforce isn't registered or part of a professional association or body. And I think that would be something that could bring up the actual status of working in care, because I think it's something that isn't marketed enough, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of young people that do a caring role anyway with their own family commitments or requirements or with elder relatives. And I think they bring a lot of skills and enthusiasm, and they look at things in a different way, which I think is very valuable.
Mm.
And they teach us so many new things, you know, that some of the youngest generation, we learn so much from them, you know, like I know some of them showing us with the technology, oh, you didn't have to copy and paste that, you can just do this, or you can add this picture in here, or you can just, you know, it's phenomenal, you know. I mean, we learn so much from them, and with clients, I think, oh, she did this and she showed me on this little thing, and she showed me how to, you know, for me now I can get onto Spotify and I can put my music on first thing when I get up, and I was like, oh right, nobody else thought of that, you know. So I think there's so much that we are also learning, and our clients are learning from the younger generation. It's amazing.
I think from the training perspective, good training helps people feel confident and that they're in the right place. Like I worked for a very large care agency and complex care service in Kent. And one of the things, I was working in recruitment there a long time ago, and one of the things that was really strong is that they had their own in-house training, and it was good. It was like good. And I would speak to people who had worked in the NHS, they'd worked in other services, 20, 30, whatever many years, and they would say the training here at this particular place blew them away, and it helped them commit to the organisation. Because when training is done really, really well, it gives you confidence that this service is going to take things seriously. If training is half a PowerPoint, an online thing, and no one even bothers to check in if you've done it anyway, it communicates something about the value that service places on quality. When there's really good, sharp training and it's done well and it's done from day one, it communicates to those new starters and people joining from other organizations, this is how much we care about this going right. This is not a tick box exercise for us. This is the lifeblood of us doing great work and great care. So I think your training communicates something about your organization. So if you're sending someone a link at 9 p.m. with 15 videos you want them to watch, and you're never going to check in, you're never going to have a one-to-one, you're never going to talk about it, that's not going to communicate as strongly as having a really thorough training process that, yes, blends online, in person, one-to-one supervisions, that demonstrates that we want you to be the best.
Yeah, I as I said, I'm horribly biased for training, but I agree. You mentioned it just then, Louis. You mentioned that blended approach, and I traditionally it used to always be face to face, and then dare I mention that word? A lot of it went online for an awful lot of organisations. I was working in the NHS at the time, and we just went online overnight. But I think that blended approach where you can learn the theory, somebody can learn the theory, and then they get that opportunity to do the face-to-face, the online, ask the facilitator, the trainer, the questions that they want to have, and as you say, that decent quality training, it's actually it's an investment, and individuals joining an organization can see that they are being invested in, and that shows them that the organization they're working for actually believes in them and they want them.
Yeah, I think an organization, sorry to interrupt, I think an organization that you can map out progression is a very good thing, because everyone's different and everyone probably has a different pathway. But if you can follow that and you can see where you can be going in the next 5 to 10 years, I think that's a very valuable thing.
And also have the opportunity to change if you suddenly think after a couple of years that all of a sudden this really isn't me, but I now want to do that as well, and have that support to do that.
And people in care are always creating new roles, right? There's, as the businesses change and grow, you develop new roles, right? So I think you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, I've just realized the time. So I would like to have a sort of few minutes of throwing it open to our audience, but I wanted to just unashamed plug here, just a very quick minute to just take the opportunity just to highlight there are leadership training programs out there, and if you are interested in one, we do have leadership. We are a leadership trainer here at Flourish. We deliver leadership training under license for Skills for Care. We are an accredited training provider, which gives you that extra confidence. We have, as you can see on screen, we have the leadership programs that match in with the care workforce pathway. We've also, this week, tomorrow, we are releasing for the first time the new CPD module, Understanding Workplace Culture. All of what you can see on screen is funded through the Learning and Development Support Scheme, the LDSS, as it's affectionately known as. I also want to just bear with me. I'm going to seamlessly copy a little link into the chat here. There's also that's just a quick link to the Culture Toolkit on the Skills for Care website as well, just to give you a little bit of background information on some training there. I'm just looking at the chat here, sorry. No, this particular training is adult social care. It's not children's residential. Having said that, there are a lot of topics within the training programs, particularly Lead to Succeed, that would actually benefit possibly, but it wouldn't be funded, because it Lead to Succeed as the introductory program actually is focused towards the CQC inspection process, so it wouldn't be suitable for Ofsted. Okay.
So how long are these courses?
So they're modular. So Lead to Succeed is 5 modules. It's we deliver them online and face to face. Generally, they're online because that seems to be more convenient to customers and delegates that attend. They are 3.5 hours long. So Lead to Succeed, it's 5 modules of 3.5 hours. Well led, it's 4 modules. LCIC, or sorry, Leading Change Improving Care. Everybody knows it as LCIC. That is another 5 modular. That I would suggest is a slightly higher level. If somebody's new to management or new to leadership, I would suggest they try either the Lead to Succeed or Well Led. If you've got a little bit of experience and training, I would go for the Well Led. If you are new, I would go for Lead to Succeed. It kind of gives you the bones of it that you can go away and flesh out, if you see what I mean. It gives you that taster. And what we're looking to do is add modules onto that as we get delegate feedback once they've completed. So if they turn around and say, I'm really in the dark about delegation, I'm really in the dark about supervision, I'd really like more, we will start bringing more training in. So it's over to those that want to join really and see what you want, what people want as additional training. But these are the funded ones. We've got 2 more CPD modules coming on at the end of summer. That will be understanding performance management and understanding self-management as well. And again, they're skills for care. We're just giving them a little bit of a tweak and a branding at the moment as we do. So finally, we have a few minutes left. There's a QR code here. Now, we have got a poll running, and Katie from our marketing team, who bless her, she's losing her voice, otherwise she'd be speaking up at this point. We have a poll in the chat that we would like you to take part in if you feel that you would like to do so. And the question we would like to ask is, how confident are you that staff feel valued in your organisation? And you have 4 choices: very confident, somewhat confident, not sure, not confident. And as a little addition onto that, I would ask to go away and think about why you feel that you've answered the way that you've answered. You don't have to put it in the chat, but if you are not confident or not sure, why? And based on discussion this afternoon, what would you change, or what would you ask managers to change in your organisation? But we have a few minutes left. If anybody wants to pop a question in the Q&A or in the chat, now is your time to do it. We will stay on for a few minutes. We've got 5 minutes left of the webinar. We'll stay on and answer questions now if you want to just type 1 or 2 out, and then it will be over to our esteemed panel.
I've been described as esteemed, delectable. So many brilliant descriptions today, Sam.
Well, Louis, I mean, you gave me sweets at the care show in London. I mean, what can I say? That's it. Friends for
All
life.
comes down to bribery, eh? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, very much so. I'll take it. I'm just going to check the Q&A. So we've got nothing in Q&A at the moment.
All is looking good, though.
Thank you. Oh, some lovely thanks for the insights and good discussions. Thank you all for attending. We very much appreciate it. Don't forget to do the poll before you leave, if you can. That would be great. Interesting, there's a lot of somewhat confidence. About 70% of those that have responded say somewhat confident about staff feeling valued. So there's definitely room there.
I think that's when you know there's other things you'd like to do. And I think there is a difference between what you want to do and what you can do. And someone mentioned earlier in the chat, I remember seeing someone pointing out, we do all want to do the right thing, and we do all want to treat staff well. And I think, no one's challenging or questioning people's motives or desires, at least those of you here. But there are some practical challenges, aren't there? As I said earlier, values, cost, and thinking through, how can I maintain this way that I want to be towards my team when X or Y or Z is happening?
True.
And I think that's where that's somewhat to vary. Maybe some people are in some situations where they know what they'd love to do, but there's some things, whether it be financial, organisational, practical, that mean that their idealised version of valuing that staff member doesn't materialise. I think that's a practical reality we all have to wrestle with. Would we all love to be able to give all of our staff a 15% raise? Yeah, probably.
Yes.
And we? Well, not the local
No.
authority. Don't do a big jump and turnaround. It's tricky. It's tricky getting that balance.
Yeah. There's more to life than money, and I'm going to get shouted at now by people in the chat. But, it's not just about money. We're in it because we care. Oh, no burning questions from the chat at the moment. Just a lot of thank yous.
Thank you.
I'll take the thanks. I do think that it's about care. It's a tricky one because it's the same with nurses, teachers, and care assistants. Not the same with doctors or lawyers and other professions. There's this idea that because we're so directly connected to people that need support, it almost becomes a license to put yourself second. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think it's a real challenge that we don't. Obviously, there's duty of care, and you can't just leave someone because you've got a party to go to or whatever. But equally, we do have to be careful that we don't run the engine on no fuel and go, well, because you care about people, we'll just keep putting this on your shoulders because we know you're a good enough person that you won't put up a fight. And really what we're doing is we're treating you badly and taking advantage of the fact that you are a decent person. And I do think, hopefully not in this wonderful group, but that is something that we can run into in care, that we use it's about care as a license to expect things that aren't fair on people. And I think that's
a good point.
Going the extra mile, love that, especially when it's self-generated. Expecting the extra mile 24/7 because well, you do care.
That's very true.
That's a real that's a grey area that we all just need to be mindful of every so often.
Agreed. Yeah.
Joanna puts it perfectly. We care, but we also have to live. And I think that's 100% right.
No,
definitely.
That's a good point. And we're all cogs in a big wheel. So it's not, you are not just whatever, you're not just a care assistant, you're not just a receptionist, you're not just an administrator, you're not just a cleaner, you're not just a porter. Everybody has that role, and every role is important.
That team piece.
Okay, well, we don't have any questions, so I'm going to wrap up this webinar. Oh, thank you, Natalie. So Natalie from Skills for Care, I recognise that name. She's just popped a message in the chat there. So as well as the resources and leadership programmes, people on the chat might also be interested to look at the Care Workforce Pathway. I would recommend you look at that. Actually, I have a spreadsheet with all the 8 categories of the Care Workforce Pathway and all of our learning and our leadership training mapped against it. So it's something I'm fairly familiar with myself. So that's very interesting. Thank you for that, Natalie. And can I thank everybody for attending today? My huge thank you to our panel members, John, Cam and Louis. Louis, more sweets next year at the Care Show, just saying.
I'll try my best.
Thank you very much, sir. And so everybody, thank you very much indeed for attending, and we will release the next webinar as soon as we possibly can. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.